Treat yourself like your best client. Wayne Kurzen. You don't want to miss today's episode. I'm bringing you my conversation with our business coach. Do you know how to manage your humanness, or do you let it get in your way? Welcome to the Stitch for Success podcast. I'm your host, Monica Allen. I'm a wife, mom, daughter, entrepreneur, author, friend, and lifelong learner. For over 8 years, I was trapped in corporate America and dreamed of escaping. I took the leap over 15 years ago, retiring from corporate. With just $700 and an idea, over the years we have grown multiple six-figure and seven-figure brands. I have mentored and employed dozens of other people along the way. The road has not been easy. I have battle wounds, bruises, and scars to prove it. And on this podcast, I share lessons learned from my failures and successes. You will also learn from other business owners who have become stitched for success as they pursue their entrepreneurial passions. My goal and hope for you is that you can learn from our mistakes and our wins and have an extremely successful business that stands the test of time. A decorated Air Force pilot, a commander of a unit of 500, a leader of several successful businesses for over 18 years, a member of an elite mastermind group of EOS implementers, and serving on the board of several nonprofits, my guest, Wayne Kurzen, joins me today. Wayne's passion is making a difference by helping business owners have more time, money, and the freedom to enjoy and pursue other passions. Well, today I have with me Wayne Kurzen. Good morning, Wayne.
Hey, good morning. Great to be with you.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. So, Wayne, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is because you have a unique experience. You not only are an entrepreneur, but you have the opportunity to work with entrepreneurs. And so I feel like you have such a wealth of knowledge and insight. And so I just so appreciate you taking the time to be with the Stitch for Success audience today.
Well, it's certainly my pleasure.
So let's jump right in. Let's take it from the angle of your entrepreneurial journey and your business. What was one of the reasons you started your business, and what problem were you trying to solve?
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to give you a thumbnail sketch of where it came from, and that will help really explain that. But I grew up on a dairy farm in Ohio. To avoid milking cows twice a day, I went to Ohio State. To avoid the Vietnam draft, I enrolled in Air Force ROTC, spent 20 years there, then 15 years at Delta as a pilot, and then the last 18, 19 years as a business advisor. I became a business coach, and by the way, I did own some businesses, took a startup to become a Home Depot supplier. But approaching mandatory retirement at Delta, I wanted a third career, a new career. And so I thought I was going to do real estate investing, and God saved me from that, because shortly thereafter, 2008 came, and that was back when you could actually buy homes with nothing down, and it would have been ugly. So I ended up buying a business coaching franchise I had for 5 years. From there, I became more independent, but I was a scaling up coach. Back then it was called Rockefeller Habits, Vern Harnish, and I did public workshops for him. And then about 7 years ago, I found EOS, which is what I do right now, and we'll probably talk more about that. But I was looking for something I could do. I didn't really want to punch a clock. I wasn't used to that anyway. And I come out of an entrepreneurial background because my parents were farmers, and that's certainly a business, one you typically don't get very rich at, but it was a business. And so I just had this bent towards entrepreneurship. So, and it brought with it the things I kind of like. You get rewarded for your smart efforts. I didn't say efforts, because if you're not doing things smart, the reward is not one you're going to want, but the freedom too. And even though, and back many times I worked 70 hours a week with the importing business. The supplier in Spain would send me a fax that would arrive at my house at 3:00 in the morning, and had the fax machine next to the bed. So I immediately would respond. So that's why I started. It was just, and then the other thing is, the thing that kind of trips my trigger that gives me, I guess, meaning in life is making the difference. And I read a book in 1970. You'll probably start to figure out how old I am now. But now I'm 73, so I'll tell you right up front. But
You don't look it at all.
thank you. But the book was called The Search for Significance. And I took from that people really have two real needs. One is to be loved, and the other is to be significant. And I think significance comes from making a difference in other people's lives. So what I'm doing really allows me to fulfill that in terms of making a difference, particularly in the lives of entrepreneurs, but then it also floods over into their families, into their employees, into their employees' families. And so it's very gratifying. So that's kind of why I ended up where I am. And so does that pretty much answer your question?
It does. Thank you so much. And I must put in here that Wayne is our business coach. And I've already seen such a huge difference in how we operate and how we run meetings and just staying steadfast on goals that we have. And so I really appreciate you being our coach.
Well, I appreciate working with you. It's fun.
We are having some fun. So that's good. From your business perspective or your business, what is one of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome with the businesses that you've run that were yours?
Okay. First of all, I'm ADD. And so it's hard to stay on task. One of the things I learned early on, in fact, I had a business coach in Brisbane, Australia. And one of the things we did is I had to email him every day, what are the two most important things you're going to do tomorrow? And you're not allowed to do anything until you get those two things done. But the other thing was to actually schedule yourself for things you need to do. If it's important, you need to do it. If you need to write a letter, you need to create a process or something. If you don't schedule it, it usually never happens because the day-to-day eats up, the urgency eats up all of your time. So then not only schedule, but then you have to treat yourself like your best client. So if you had a customer who was your best customer and you had scheduled a meeting and that meeting got sidetracked for some reason, you would definitely reschedule it. So when you schedule the time, then you need to, if you don't make it, then reschedule it. Because most of the times there's a lot of things that are very important, but they're not urgent. In fact, we want to spend a lot of our life, business life, working on those things that are not urgent, but important. And if we don't schedule it, then everything is eat up by the things that are maybe important or not important, but they're urgent. So I'd say that was number one thing. A second thing is that I have this innate tendency to want to make things better. And I've been involved with several systems that were proven, 19 years proven, but I always had to make them better. And I would say when I started business coaching, I probably lost a couple of years trying to make the system that was proven, make it better. So it's find something that works and then kind of stick with it. Don't, I spent a lot of time making it better.
Yeah. And I'll say that to me, that has been the greatest thing with us, with your coaching, is just us, that meeting that we have every Monday morning, just having that scheduled and having that set aside is so important. And we get things done because we know we have to come to the table and have things accomplished, which is great because we will reschedule things for ourselves.
Yeah.
Knowing that meeting, and also knowing that you're on the back end, seeing that we did it, you're our accountability, is definitely very, very helpful.
In that light too, I think one of the biggest things we have to do is learn how to manage our humanness. The fact that we procrastinate, the fact that we're not accountable. And so having some type of accountability is always good. And even in a high trust environment, we're humans and we actually perform better if we know that. But that meeting you're talking about, we call it the weekly level 10. And call it a level 10 because at the end of the meeting, we say, so how do we function as a leadership team on a scale of 1 to 10, sort of like the Olympics. And that's a perfect example. We say it should be the same day, same time, starts on time, ends on time, and follow the agenda. And when you develop that discipline, you just get so much more done. So, yeah.
We definitely leave it.
The level 10 is really being beneficial.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely leave it feeling more accomplished and also knowing what we need to do next, which is very helpful, of course.
And that's kind of into this whole thing too, that if we're just in a rat race and we're always responding and reacting in a hectic environment, we're not really focused on important things. And so you do have to stop, take a breath. And we, in fact, even in that level 10, we say, what we're going to do now is we're going to move from working in the business to now working on the business, and we're going to act like a board of directors. So that's just a whole different way of thinking. And in those meetings, we're looking for our issues that we need to solve, and then we spend a lot of time solving the issues with action steps, getting away from typical meetings or a lot of talking, not a lot of doing, but it's very action oriented, as you found.
Yes, it is very action oriented, and I love that. And going from that stance, kind of moving away from, your specific business, but being that you do have the opportunity to work with so many other businesses, you're working with us, but you also work with many other clients. What is the biggest or common mistakes businesses make?
It really, oftentimes, it's not stopping and actually spending time and determining what's important and then developing a plan to work on those important things. So one of the things we do, as you know, every 90 days, every quarter, we have a full day of planning where we look at how we worked and how we performed last quarter, but then we set our priorities for the next quarter. And we call those rocks. Comes from Stephen Covey. If you had rocks, pebbles, sand, and water, and you're trying to put them in a jar, if you don't put the rocks in first, there's no room for them. So we're saying those rocks are important things. And by the way, they're usually the important, not urgent. So it's stopping and actually coming up with a plan as to where you're going and how you're going to get there. And we found that 90 days is about the right time frame, because it's not, if it's too much longer than that, it's too hard to predict. This year, it wouldn't be 90, it'd be more like 30 days because everything is changing so fast. So I'd say the big thing is stop and go through the process of figuring out what's important and have a plan. And you can't do everything. So what are the 3 to 5 things that are really important for this next 90 days?
Right. Yeah. And I find that to be so helpful, because you do have this long list of things you want to get done.
Right.
But that can be really overwhelming until you can break it down and say, well, what really needs to be done in this next 90 days versus all of this, 20, 30 things that, you become stagnant because you don't know where to start. So that's so helpful.
Yeah. I saw something that said if you had 1 or 2 important things for a period of time, you would, rocks as we'd call them, you'd get 2. If you had 2 rocks, you get 2 rocks done. If you had 3 to 10, you'd probably get 3 or 4 rocks done. But if you had 10 to 20, you get none of them done. Because every time we add another thing, then there's less focus on what we're doing. And it's more important to focus on 1 or 2 things and get those finished than to have so many plates going. And if you're ADD like me, you think multitasking is a great idea, and when in fact it's not.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, it really doesn't work that well. You end up running in multiple directions.
Right.
So you do work with all of these different businesses. Is there a common area, though, where we need help the most? Do you see there, is it finances? Is it employees? Where do you see the most help, where the most need is?
I'm going to move this to not starting a business, but say you've been in business for a couple of years. We find that frustrations fall into 5 categories. The first one is lack of control as you first started and you get more things moving, and pretty soon you feel like you're out of control and you're waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and saying, did I do that? Did they do that? So that happens. The third one is a lack of profitability. But the biggest problem when you get to that stage where you have people is people. They just don't listen. Lack of accountability or conflict. One of the things that we work so hard on is creating trust on the leadership team. And that's where you have an open, honest, transparent leadership team. And so we work very hard to create the environment where people feel safe to be open and honest and to challenge the boss or whatever. So, yeah, I would say that's probably the big thing. The other 2 ones are flavor of the month, starting something new. If you're visionary like you and Ethan, you got 20 ideas a month, 20 ideas a week, maybe 20 ideas a day. But so that can be a challenge. And then the third thing is what we call hitting the ceiling. So as you start a business, it's been proven that businesses do not grow in a straight line going up. They grow and then they stagnate. We call that hitting the ceiling. And you hit it, you don't know why, but you hit the ceiling. And so the systems that we're working with, EOS, really helps us to either not hit the ceiling, or if we do, to break through the ceiling. So those are the 5 frustrations. The big one is typically people. Now, when you first start out, so I'm a solopreneur and I have a bookkeeper and I have a virtual assistant. But I still use the same tools that I'm teaching larger companies with 100 employees. We do a weekly level 10 meeting, for example. So that's kind of what I would summarize the common things. Those are the issues. And the big thing is, if you can latch onto an operating system, a business operating system that keeps you inside the guardrails, if you will, then that's what really helps the most. And most of the time, find that people are smart and their businesses run in a smart way, but it's fragmented and they're not on focus and they don't have people that are all rowing in the same direction. So having a business operating system to plug into makes a huge difference. So I think that's pretty much what I would say.
Yeah, I definitely think an operating system helps. And that's something I've fought for a while, but I definitely think it helps to just keep you on task.
Well, everyone has an operating system.
Yeah.
It may not have a name. It may be chaos, but there is a way of you do business.
That is true.
So, yeah. So EOS, and there's others out there, but it's really, I make it, well, to explain it to me, it's like if you had a Windows laptop, the operating system is Windows. Well, you're not making keystrokes and mouse movements directly with Windows, hopefully, but with the applications. But if the Windows is corrupt, then we know what happens to the applications. And so think of a business operating system as a structure that you kind of that's the glue that kind of holds everything together. So
that makes sense. I want to thank Wayne for spending time with us and sharing his insight on scheduling time with yourself to work on the business and not just in the business. This made me think that even if you are a solopreneur, you should put time on your calendar to just work on your business each week. Be consistent and treat yourself like your best client. Also, his insight on the importance of establishing and maintaining an operating system is essential. Join me next week when I share with you the second part of my conversation with Wayne, when he gives us some words of wisdom for our businesses as we move into 2021. If you are interested in learning more about EOS or getting in touch with Wayne, please see the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to the Stitch for Success podcast. I'm so happy that you chose to listen today. If you have not already, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. This helps the podcast continue to grow and hopefully make a difference. If you want to continue any part of this conversation, please email me at stitchforsuccess@gmail.com, or you can direct message me on Instagram at stitchforsuccess. I would love if you would follow me on Instagram as well. I post inspirational quotes, and I also enjoy sharing some of the creative projects we're working on. Lastly, if you are interested in a complimentary coaching session, please visit stitchforsuccess.com and click at the top of the page to complete the form to sign up. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great one.